Okay, welcome to the hanging cabinet, really. This is what I use for game or feathered poultry, that kind of thing. So it's an old fridge, it works well, especially in the winter. But I wanted to get stuck into some deer today. So I did a video on TikTok the other day saying, is that something you might be interested in seeing? I hope it's not too echoey or too noisy, but I'll do my best. I've got a microphone on somewhere, there it is. And so it should be okay. And I'm going to try and show you how to skin a deer because it's brilliant food, really healthy, good quality, and surprisingly available in this country. So we've got a deer here. This is a headshot roe, so you can see it's got no head. I've had it hanging for a few days, so it's dry now and really well chilled. You can get special deer skinning knives where you can have like a little hooked barb and it goes down the leg. But I just use a regular butcher's knife. So I'm just going to have a little start on it now. So the first thing I do is I zip up the legs with a knife. So for example, if I get that one there, you want to sort of make a little in-root. And you'll notice that the entire skin really will peel. Can you see that? If you do it right, it just takes a bit of persuasion. Now, I haven't actually done this for quite a long time, so this is relatively new to me at the moment. So I'm just going to really gently skin up the leg like that. Try not to nick the leg because for a lot of people, the haunch is the most expensive bit. We mainly do things as dice, but if I can sell a haunch, I do. But once you get down to this part, you can be a bit more scruffy if you're not too worried. So here I've unzipped there, which you can probably, let me see if I can get that on the camera there, and you can already see the skin there. So I'm going to just have a little look down here, try and feed this through. Then I'm going to actually try to get it off at the top here. I'll spin it around a bit. A lot of it's trial and error, seeing how you go, because each skin does eventually come off, but you've just got to be a bit careful, and it can be quite fiddly. But once you get this top off, you can usually have a good start getting it down a bit. I just don't want to make it ruined, but you can go around a hook at the top if you want, like that, because you're not going to use that end really. So you don't have to worry too much about getting the knife on it. But also, if you're a bit too messy with it, you can get a lot of the fur on the meat, which I don't like. So I try to just do it very steady and make a start. So that's already gone around like that. If I make more of a score there, and now hopefully that is completely removed from there. Just like that. Okay. So we should be able to start getting that down. What you don't want is to be pulling off too much of the skin. My hook's not working very well. I might swap the hook onto the other leg. I think that leg's just pulled a bit too hard, hasn't it? All right, I had to swap the leg around. Okay. Oh, that's why. This I must have nicked the tendon there. That's okay. We can sort that out. So now you can start going down the carcass, pulling at that. But there's like a different layer you don't want coming off with it. So if you just got to, the legs kind of start off really steady, like that. You see, starting to go. Lovely. Okay, that's coming off really nice. You can already see the venison there. Right. So I'm going to be doing this one now. I'm going to unzip there. Again, I don't want to cut the meat, so I'm just going to get almost like a finger hole in there and start peeling it away before I try to unzip it from the meat. There we go. Half the trouble is my knives are so sharp, if you make any kind of error, you end up cutting straight through. So that's already going around there. Brilliant. And what you can do, if you get to these sorts of parts down here, you can use the butt of your knife to knock it out like that if you want to, as long as you're careful. Don't stab yourself in the face. Be amazed how close I've been to stabbing myself in the face. Yeah. A long time ago, I was doing some butchery, and a fly came in. I can't remember. We're talking years ago now, and it was buzzing around my face, and I just, by habit, flicked to shoo it away. And I was holding a knife, and I cut my face there, and I wasn't paying attention. I was in the zone, and it's mad, isn't it? How easy it is to do silly things like that. I was at millimetres away from cutting my eye. Stupid Ben. Stupid Ben. Right. I was younger. We're allowed to blame ourselves if we're younger. I was young and stupid back then. Now, you might think if you're experienced at doing this kind of job, I'm taking far too long. But what I want to show you is just, actually by being cautious, I just want to make sure I've got this done right. I don't like to spoil the haunches if I don't have to. There'll be slaughtermen out there who can do this in like minutes. It takes me a bit longer because I'm not an experienced skinner. But I do like to make sure it's very tidily done. And I've got a little bit up there. You can probably see just here. It's not quite off, so I should be really gentle with that, see? Trying to not cut the tendon like I just did earlier, which is another schoolboy error I forgot about. Just up here like that. So this is a fridge, so I'm having to wear a warmer coat. That's why I'm not in my butcher's outfit. But also, skinning really is not a clean job, and it's not something I'd want to transfer my clothing to the butchery from. So I wear outdoor clothing to do skinning. Just because you get all this, can you see on here, look, you get all this fur there, gets all over you. So now we're getting around this quite well. I do have some special spinning hooks, which I should have thought about bringing, but I never did. Because I do everything on some sort of impulse. I always forget about planning for videos. I'm so crap at it. I'm really bad at planning. Really, really bad at planning. So get you off there. Okay, good. Not far off. And then you'll notice in a minute this becomes a bit quicker and actually a bit less refined. It becomes more heavy-handed, which I'll show you. Right. So now that's there. Okay. Now we're down here. You'll start to see that coming off. But now what we don't want is it to pinch, catch, here. You'll make sure it doesn't do things like that, otherwise it'll pull the meat off with it. So a lot of this is about, see, can you see how easily it can pull and tear? So I haven't actually torn it, but that's just experience telling me to stop. Now here we've got, this part here is like where all the breast is. So we've actually got the legs out now, which is the most important bit. The breast here is where it can all go wrong. It can catch and stay on the skin. So sometimes you can just get straight in there, it's dry, and cut it down along the front. And do some sort of preparation for this part. Because this bit's the easiest bit to actually mess up. Because you think you're home, you think you're on the way, and you end up actually getting a lot of it stuck on. So I often take the tail off by cutting like this through the skin. Leave it on the skin. And you'll see now, it will just start to peel off. Gently. But what you don't want is this to catch there. Like little bits like that. So I'm going to cut that. And now you can see here, it's starting to stick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and stop that from happening by going down the front neatly and making sure I cut the meat away. But this is that I often find the hardest bit. To be fair, it's the least valuable bit. So if you are just wanting good dice, then the breast really isn't the end of the world. So if you're feeling like you're not getting anywhere, just whip the bugger off. Just make sure you leave the shoulders on well. Right. What I'll do, I'm going to change your angle so you can have a bit of a better look as to what I'm doing here. So this is what I was talking about. That stayed on the skin, you see, and you don't want that. So what I'm trying to do is cut that off and leave this bit on. Can you see? Like that. So if you get this happen, which is easily done, that's the difference between someone like me who's not experienced and someone who really knows what they're doing. So you can, like now, if you've committed to this, you can cut all this bit off. But this is because it's a roe deer as well. Sometimes these little deers, they do stick easier as well. It's not necessarily all your own fault when you make a hash of it. If you get something like a fallow deer, they almost just unzip, you know. And they're really good. I've always struggled with this part of the skinning process in the past. But we're getting there. So now I'm down past the shoulder. So that is kind of coming off, but it's still a bit, you can see there's not a lot of meat on that front, which is making it more difficult to peel off. So if you start the back here, that should start coming. This side should start coming off quite well. If I keep hold of these as I pull them, then they should come off with the meat, not the skin. Like I said, if it gets to the stage where it's making a bit too much of a mess, you just got to weigh up your options and think to yourself, perhaps I'm just going to have to cut them off. So I'm going to carry on with this side now. So if you see there, just going to be gentle with it. So I can turn it around this way. Take it a better angle. Yeah, you can see it better from there. So a lot of it here will be about getting it off before it sticks. Lift that up. Again, you're just creating that tension to stop it from sticking to the skin there. Look. You're just going to make sure you don't pull too hard. Like what I just did there was I probably pulled a bit too hard, and that's left that on the skin instead. And so we've got this bit here. See, that's a bit stuck. So I'm going to keep hold of that as I pull. Yeah, and I've lost a bit there, see? That's what I was meaning. So sometimes you can just, it's going to still be on the deer, so you still going to get that as like trimmings or diced or something. If it's just for yourself, you can use that as diced. And then you want it to sort of match up at the back. But this is the bit we're going to struggle with the most. And it's often the bit we don't need. Typical, isn't it? But I'm just being very cautious and careful. If this was really late at night and it was like around Christmas or something, I'd be smashing these out and I wouldn't be worrying too much about this bit. But I appreciate anyone who's watching this is going to be someone who's interested in doing this for themselves, and this is going to be much more what it's going to be like, a roe deer shot locally. So I'm just going to try and make sure I show you everything that's gone wrong as well, so you know it's not really a big deal. So that there's a little bit of loose meat. It's not a problem. Just going to keep that going around like that. So, like, I've missed a tiny bit there, which, you know, a good slaughterman would have not done. But we'll just carry on. Because once you pass this bit, it gets a bit easier down the bottom. Now, let's put it off now, you see. So the bit I've missed there, these here, these are called the tiger stripes. So if you get a really nice one to skin, they pull off ever so easy. You get the tiger stripes left on, but so often on these like thinner, smaller sort of deer like this, I struggle to get them on. So what I'm going to do now, here's his shoulder. It's hard to get this on camera. I'm just going to cut along this front, a bit like the leg. We're going to unzip it so we can just start pulling it off on both sides as well. So I'll do this one too. So now venison's a really healthy meat, and it's also good for the environment in the sense that it's wild. It's not farmed. Well, this isn't farmed anyway. I'm sure there are people that farm them, but we don't farm them. And, you know, it's something that we do here in the countryside that actually works for people. Kind of like a controlled or a waste product almost, you know. Trying to keep the numbers down is something that we need to do in this country to make things correct. But also you get a really tasty product. So I'm just going to carry on skinning this here. We're going to try and show you here. So I'm just skinning this part of the shoulder, just here. And that's just been sliced down like that. So now this part here, you can just start pulling. Hook the hook instead. So we should be able to just peel this away. If it doesn't just peel, you've got the option to just gently prise it away with a knife. These little tendons here, tiny little little tendons really. I don't know what it's like, sticky things hold the skin on, but you don't want them to be. When you've got it hanging up and you're hitting it hard, they break quite easy. But when you're doing it like this, laid down, you've got to be gentle with them. But that's actually getting somewhere. It's good. I'm just going to take it. I've got a little bit here, which I'm going to take off this hock. So now that shoulder should kind of be fully open like that, you see. And you should be able to turn that over and just pull that down as well. If you get any more stick on, it's like there, see it's stuck a bit. So you want to get your knife in there and just make sure it's not stuck anymore. And then mainly using your hands just to prise it back again, like that. You want to be able to pull it hard enough that it doesn't take the meat with it, but you sort of, a lot of the work is the pulling of the fur Like that. There we go. That's down to the neck, which the neck's often quite tough in a literal sense, as in it's a tough meat, so it sticks on quite hard too. But as we've got this laid down, I'm going to flip it over. I'll do the other shoulder in front of the camera here. So yeah, I haven't done this for a long time. I used to do a lot of these once upon a time. I used to have like a whole game dealers thing on the farm that I did. But in time, it never worked out really. Met some nice people, had some nice members of staff and things, but I couldn't really make it work. I think it's kind of on its way out. So when I took it on, really, that's just what I seem to do. I think get things wrong, but learn a few skills along the way, don't we? You never regret the things you didn't do. No, that's not the phrase, is it? You regret the things you didn't do, not the things you did. That's what I'll try and live by. So, if all else fails, at least I can skin a deer, pluck a pheasant, things like that. So I always like to think if there's an apocalypse, I'll be alright. As long as things can survive to eat, I should be fine. Okay, so now I should better just, again, I've unzipped that end. Boop. See, that's off there. And that should be coming on the inside now. Again, we've got a little bit of snag in there. Sorry, the camera's rocking. It's because I'm giving it a bit too much. Helps if I had a hook, wouldn't it, really? And broke it. Caught that one in time, at least. So that's caught just here. So I'm going to try and just undo that as well. See, this has been hanging for a few days, so it gets dry edges. And actually, in a lot of ways, you're better off skinning it straight away. I quite like to leave them hanging, just because I think it develops flavour. And it dries them out a little bit, which I think is quite nice for cutting them up so they're not too... But, you know, it doesn't really matter. I don't know if I'm just telling myself that because I'm lazy and I just never get around to doing anything straight away. Okay. Right. And now, that's the last bit there of the fur, which is just going to hopefully, if I turn this one over like that, all being well, I should just peel off. He says, that's what I say about the neck. That's a bit tough. There we go. If it gets to this stage, this is like I've just struggled to get that last bit off. So you can just use your knife. Like that. So, now there is a bit on the skin. This is what I was meaning about. I have unfortunately left a little bit there. Some of the tiger stripes fell off. But overall, quite happy with that. And I'll get the hook, we'll hang it up and we'll take a look. Relatively successful skin, and it's done. Now what I will do is a bit later on, I've got another one to do as well. I'll try and do some butchery and I'll try and do some videos around that. But all in all, you skin a deer mainly by pulling. It's kind of what you expect it's going to be, really. And so I I suppose part of me thinks before I ever skinned a deer, I might have thought there was more cutting involved than there actually is. So I'm just having a look around the carcass and having a little trim around now before I go get in the butchery. So like sometimes you get some bits here that are untidy. I'm just going to cut them whilst I'm talking to you. So yeah, all in all, I say that's pretty good. I'll see if I can turn the camera around and have a bit more of a look.